Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Trans Stupid, where I look at some of the news that's been going on in the LGBTQIA++ community, because stupidity is intersectional. So I want to start this week off by discussing one of the stories I ended last week's episode on, and that concerns a up-and-coming lolcow in the trans community, Stephanie Hayden. Now, you might remember that Stephanie had put through a court order to website Mumsnet because she wants the personal details of one of their users, and she gave them until 4 PM on Tuesday evening to provide that info to them. It's a little bit ironic that Hayden was getting angry that people were leaking her details out online, but it's fine when she demands her enemies to provide it. It's a little bit interesting, don't you think? But there has been a bit of a development. Transgender activist who won High Court battle to force Mumsnet to hand over details of user she says defamed her on the site now claims the information they have given her is misleading. A transgender activist feels she has been banned from Mumsnet for trolling in the midst of a legal battle in which the website revealed the details of a user alleged to have posted defamatory remarks directed against her. On Monday, a High Court judge ordered Mumsnet to reveal the identity of the online troll who made allegedly defamatory comments about Stephanie Hayden, accusing her of serious criminal activity. Today, the website complied with the request, but Miss Hayden said the user may have provided misleading details. Miss Hayden said Mumsnet have now banned me from the website and accused me of being a troll. This is yet another example of Mumsnet attempting to silence the voices of the transgender community whilst permitting harassment and abuse. I will now review the information supplied in order to assess my legal options. I expect to be back in touch with Mumsnet Limited in the very near future, as there appear, on initial reading, to be issues with the veracity of the information supplied. Miss Hayden said her lawsuit was not about so-called dead naming or doxing, a word used to refer to the outing of someone's identity or former identity online. She said it's an idiot on a website who's gone too far and is trying to stir the brown stuff. Nothing to do with transgender or dead naming. This was nothing to do with that. So what actually is all this for, Steph? You've constantly mentioned about people defaming you, and you've had a habit of doing this all the way since Graham Linehan last year. In fact, this seems to be a bit of a running theme where you consistently accuse people of doing something, but you don't provide anything that really backs up what you're saying, as though we're supposed to take your word for it. Someone who seems to be permanently offended by everything. I mean, hell, look at a picture of Stephanie Hayden. She constantly looks like something has really, really pissed her off. I am not going to take her word that someone has defamed her. Now, I'm not entirely sure what this defamation could be that this user has apparently done to her, but it just seems as though Hayden is using the golf club of the law to swing at her opponents and shut them down. Hayden appears to be becoming a much bigger name than I really predicted last year. But the trans community predictably just believe that she is now their big, true, virtuous fighter. But provide evidence of what you're doing that is so virtuous. I don't see anything at all. It seems like someone who's just pushing their weight around because they don't like people saying mean things online. It's a crime when people say mean things about her and leak her details, but it's fine for her to do it to others. Hayden, if you are watching this, provide details of exactly what this defamation is. Maybe then I might think about it and think maybe what you're doing is reasonable. But as it stands, you're acting like a thug. But moving away from Hayden, there's actually a little bit of a theme to this week's episode. And it's a little bit by accident, mainly by the kind of news that I've come across. And a lot of it is education based. So the first school story that I'm going to be covering revolves around a trans teen who has been trying to use a female changing rooms now that they have recently come out as being trans. Transgender rights clash prompts walkout at CB Abraham Lincoln High. A clash over transgender students' rights reached a boiling point at Council Bluffs High School on Thursday as two groups of students walked out of Abraham Lincoln High to have their say on the use of school's restrooms. The walkout was triggered by a female student who believes her privacy is being invaded by a student who recently began to identify as a girl. At around 10:30 AM, the students started leaving the building. They separated into two groups. A group of approximately 20 girls started chanting for privacy in the restrooms, saying they don't want boys transitioning into being girls to be in the restroom with them. Another group of approximately 40 students chanted in favour of the rights of transgender students to use whichever restroom they feel comfortable with. So the students who are against the supposed trans person using the bathroom were outnumbered 2-1. That's not a massive surprise in the woke year of current year. We would generally expect there to be lots of people championing the oppressed and making sure that they aren't being downtrodden. Let's go back to the line, recently began to transition. And this is where I kind of have a little bit of a problem. As a trans woman who has transitioned, I do use women's restrooms. Of course I do. And that's something which I've needed to earn, so to speak. You shouldn't just be able to instantly use these rooms once you self-identify. You need to be able to show them that you are serious about what it is that you're doing. Otherwise, you're just coming across as a guy just wandering in, and that's not a good look for anyone, and especially the trans woman. Now, I shouldn't really say supposed. I'm sure that this is someone who is actually transitioning, but at the same time, do you really want to be using changing rooms and restrooms when you've done nothing to appear female from the looks of things? You know, these are quite sensitive areas, and are you not feeling self-conscious about any of this? It's a bit of a push to say you're instantly able to use this stuff. You kind of have to earn it, and I know that I'm coming from a position of privilege when I say this, but it is kind of important, really, that you're making sure that you are in a good place and everybody else is going to be able to respect that as well. I'm not saying everyone's going to be cool with it, and if you are someone who has fully transitioned and someone has problems with using a restroom, that's a different conversation entirely. But maybe they are presenting as female, maybe they've grown their hair out, maybe they are doing things. Let's see what one of the students has to say. Student Elena Owens says, "We felt very uncomfortable with a male who's not doing anything to be transgender going into the female restrooms." Oh, okay, so you've not done a bloody thing, and you're expecting that women are going to be okay with you using it. This is why I disagree with the rhetoric that everyone who says they are trans is valid. A transition means that you need to start changing yourself. You can't just self-identify. That's not good enough. And quite frankly, having read that line, I am on the side of the people who are protesting, and I'm a tranny. Put some effort into your transition, and then we will talk. But for our next lesson, let's go back to the UK and see what they're doing in Warwickshire, because they've been handing out a transgender booklet, and I'm sure it's going down really well. Oh, wait, no, it's suspended. A council is reviewing its use of a controversial transgender toolkit for schools after complaints from parents. Warwickshire County Council had issued the booklets to all schools in the county at the end of January last year. The booklet, which describes itself as a best practice guide, provides schools with the information it needs to become a trans-inclusive environment. But now its use has been formally suspended as a review takes place into its content. There's this really weird push at the moment of instilling all this trans-inclusive education. I don't think it's really that important. So we're talking about a group that really should be making up a very small percentage of the overall population in the UK. Whether there are even people attending schools who are going to be genuinely transsexual is such a small number, and a lot of them might not even come out in school anyway. This kind of education should be brought up if you do end up having a young person who has gender dysphoria and is transitioning. Maybe teaching other young people about what is going on and helping them understand what it is that this person is going through could indeed be a vital tool. But my approach to it would be understanding why this person is doing it and making sure that you are not being horrible to them for going through something which is quite difficult. But we all know what the purpose of these books are. They're not there to talk about gender dysphoria, they're there to push an ideology. If you're pushing things like this, I don't trust what the trans community pushes nowadays. In particular, booklets such as this. I think there's a real rush to make everything as woke as possible, and trans issues fall within that. But at this point, it still seems like we're forcing an ideology on people and not really dealing with the issues as and when they appear. I can think of a lot of other things that school children could be taught in place of this as something which will probably not impact them at all. Deal with the issue when it arises. But moving on from basic school levels, let's go into further education. And it's quite a woke college that's going to start admitting trans men from 2020, which is great. But the policy excludes trans women. Morehouse is missing a crucial opportunity to become more inclusive by purposely excluding trans female students, says Tatiana Rafael, a current student who identifies as a transsexual woman. Morehouse College, the only all-male, historically black college in the US, announced that it will begin admitting transgender men next year in a new review that the college's board of trustees approved on Saturday. While non-binary and gender non-conforming students will be eligible for admission, because of course they are. NBs are in everything nowadays. It's the most easy gender that you could possibly be. You want to be included in women's spaces, you're NB. You're included in men's spaces, you're NB. You want to be in NB spaces, you're NB. Sorry for taking this up topic. Let me continue. While non-binary and gender non-conforming students will be eligible for admission, trans women will not. And students who transition or begin to self-identify as female during their tenure at Morehouse will not be eligible to receive a degree from the college. So let me get this straight. You've got a men's college that are going to be accepting trans men because they recognise trans men as people who should belong in that area. Great. Completely agree with that. Now you're saying that trans women, people who identify as women, should be in the men's college, and to not have a trans woman in a men's college is transphobia. I thought the idea was society would treat you as a woman. So why the hell do you want to be in a men's college? Among all male schools, Morehouse is the first in the country to adopt a transgender policy. Still, some students and alumni say the school's policy is not as progressive as it first looks. Tatiana Rafael, a current student at Morehouse College, who identifies as a transsexual woman, told BuzzFeed News she believes the policy is discriminatory against trans women students. She said she believed the policy would not affect her ability to graduate because she was grandfathered in before the policy would be fully implemented. I will make history as the first fully transitioned woman in the school's 152-year history and the first female on the student record since the 1930s to earn a degree. At the same time, Rafael says she feels it is unfortunate for the trans women who come after her at Morehouse College, again, a men's college, who won't be allowed to matriculate. Morehouse is missing a crucial opportunity to become more inclusive by purposely excluding trans female students. What about cis female students? Hey, what about cis female students? Should they be allowed in as well? Into the men's college? Or should they still be excluded, but they include you, a trans woman? Like, if we're going to have these segregated colleges by sex, I personally am against any kind of segregation like that. But if you're going to have them, at least be consistent. You can't have a men's college and then say, but you're being transphobic by excluding trans women into it. If you want to be recognised as a woman, that means that you can't use men's spaces anymore. It's a trade-off that I'm willing to pay. Why aren't you? This is not the first time Morehouse College has faced challenges around LGBT or gender identity issues. In 2002, a 19-year-old student was accused of beating a fellow student with a bat when he mistook the actions of the latter as sexual advance. Okay, that's a bit extreme. I don't think that trans women not going to this college anymore is in the same league, I'm afraid. Exactly why you would want to go to a men's college as a trans woman is completely beyond me. Just go to a normal college. And maybe be thankful that they recognise you as a woman. Is that not what you want? I mean, that's what I would want in that situation. I wouldn't want to be put in the men's area. It just comes across as entitlement. And with transitioning, you can't have your cake and eat it. You can't say that they need to consider you a woman, but then still consider you a man for when it's convenient to you as well. And finally, what better way to end an education special by going back to probably my main topic, which is the bloody NUS, because they had their main conference last week, and I touched on it a little bit in my last week's video. And so what did they get up to? Well, they decided to elect a new president who said that she wanted to oppress white people and have an Islamic takeover. They also held a vote to stop douchebags pressing F to pay respects, basically referencing a meme from an old Call of Duty game. And they want to ban the meme. I mean, it's quite an old meme at this point anyway. But this is the kind of level that we're dealing with. But let's get on to the main event. And I'm sure a lot of people have probably been wondering exactly what my thoughts on this are. So a couple of months ago, I made a video talking about how the NUS Trans campaign was dead and how it had been gone forever. And I jumped the gun massively because, unsurprisingly, they voted to reinstate it, to massive applause from within the NUS. Not realising that it's a campaign that they can barely afford to run at this point because the NUS is currently having serious financial trouble. And what they are wanting to fund is a campaign that did nothing all year. And for examples of that, have a look at the NUS Trans's Twitter account. So you would have thought they would have been applauding everyone for helping to save the campaign. No, they're just completely gone. Like, there is no comments on there at all since about March when they retweeted something. Or maybe they're going to finally announce exactly who it is that now leads the campaign. Well, this all-important group, really important one they had to make sure that they had the funding for, still will not tell anyone who is going to be leading it going forward. They've still not announced their results. Having said that, someone by the name of Natalia Mole actually tweeted during the conference to say that she was the chair of the trans campaign, which indicates that she has now taken over from Jess Bradley, who we can assume is not going to appear again in the near future. But even then, she's done absolutely nothing. Where the hell are these people for this really important campaign? And unsurprisingly, it turns out that prison abolition, yep, she's a communist. Of course she is, of course. That's what you have to be to get anywhere in NUS politics nowadays. I really, really should have seen all this coming. Of course they were going to vote to reinstate the campaign. It's an easy virtue signal for them. Nobody in current year wants to look as though they're oppressing any kind of group. And the NUS, which is very much into their intersectional politics, do not want to be looking as though they're oppressing anyone. And in fact, there was a couple of tweets angry at the thought that the vote might have been secret. Personally, I'm thinking that's because those who are voting would be scared that they're going to be targeted by radical activists. But it's easy enough for them to do because ultimately these students aren't really the ones who are paying for it. Other people are. And they are going to run out of money sooner or later. Things like this are going to help bring down the NUS. Interestingly, throughout all of this, there was not a single mention of Jess Bradley at all. All of these speeches about how important the work is, how much the trans community relies on them, and yet there is no word on the person who was meant to be running it all year. The person who was suspended and is still suspended to this day. Yeah, pretty much 9-month mark almost. And that's really telling, isn't it? They really want to save this campaign, and yet one of the people who spearheaded it in the first place is just completely gone. No mention at all. There ain't no Bradders here, and there never was. That they can get away with this is absolutely ludicrous, but it's also quite infuriating because I'm increasingly feeling as though I am the one person who's really pointing this out to everyone. They have an officer who has been suspended for 9 months, who not a single person has taken any kind of responsibility on, under serious allegations. They have been paid for 9 months. No one is talking about this. In fact, if you look through it, none of these people are talking about Jess Bradley at all. None of them are questioning. They are all on lockdown. They are purposely not talking about her. They know that something is up. Like, go back to some of the allegations, the serious allegations where the people who are really calling out Jess Bradley's behaviour, saying that they don't believe in going to the police or anything like that. And yet they are all being really, really quiet about this. All of this community, the community should be the ones who are delivering justice. The community's not delivering any justice, is it? No, you're all shut up. None of you want to deliver justice. You are protecting this person. You are willingly protecting this person at this point. There is no way you don't know about any of these things that have been alleged. And so I want to end this video by really highlighting this and how absurd this has been for almost 9 months. Complete silence. Something has gone on. I don't believe the NUS is being quiet for no reason. I don't know what has happened. But if something comes out, if those allegations are true, remember these people who fund themselves using taxpayer money, who have access to young and vulnerable people, they are staying purposely silent over someone which, regardless of whether the allegations are true or not, there should certainly be concerns. They are being very quiet. Remember this. So thank you all for watching. Please be sure to check out my first video in the series called Pillars of the Community, where I discuss a particular person by the name of JY. I don't know how long that video is going to be staying up, so make sure to check it out whilst you can. I also want to give a special thank you to all my new subscribers who might have watched me on Dumping with Scrump a couple of days ago as well. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time. And a special thank you to Sarah and all my supporters on Patreon and Subscribestar.